All right, are y'all ready to paint?
Sure.
Okay. So what we're going to do, we're going to get some paint around to you guys. And we're also going to, I want to pass this around too. Stephanie, you want to help me?
Yes.
Just because this is loosely what we're going to do today. So when I say loosely, we're going to go through this and you can paint this exact thing. But you can also put some of your own creativity in there too. We're going to get you all some paint. Brushes that are already out, the two biggest ones, which are a 5/8 and an 1/8. So we got the two biggest brushes, and then the other two that I use are a number 2 and a number 3, and the numbers are right there on the brush handles. But again, if they're already open and out for you, then those are the ones that are in your cup. You can mix on that palette if you want to, but the paper plate is really designed for you to mix. Okay, does everybody have colors? Okay, everybody's got their paint brushes out. We're gonna, I always start with the background, okay? So put your brushes in the water. I usually keep all my brushes in the water. I always start with the background, but I like to make a little outline of what I'm doing first. So what I use is I'm gonna use the 3, and I'm going to make as though it were a pencil. And the reason I don't use a pencil, and you can use a pencil, is that it's a little harder to cover up and see through on the canvas. So I try to take my lightest color, which is going to be the bright yellow. You should have 2 colors of yellow. You should have a yellow, a golden yellow, and a really bright yellow. I typically will dip my brush in the water and use the lighter yellow. And so what I'm going to do first is make the circle outline of the center of the sunflower. That way I kind of know where it's going to go. Doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to change it and move it around, but that kind of lets you know where you're starting. Then I take the petals and I'm going to make outlines of each petal. And since you know everyone's going to be different, I do the foreground petals first just so that I know where they are. Okay, so you start with your foreground petals, and then you're going to put in some background petals. I'm using the largest brush, the 5/8, for everything in the background. I tend to use the 5/8 brush a lot. I mean, I could probably do the whole painting in most of it anyway in the 5/8 brush. You don't really have to worry about anything else except putting color. And if you'll notice in that painting, it's dark blue at the top and then going down to green. And it's okay if it merges together. You get some mixture in there. It doesn't matter. And if you go into your sunflower somewhat with your background, that doesn't matter either. So now I'm going to take, for those of you who are on the background, I'm going to take some green, and you see how it mixes with the blue and it doesn't matter. And you're not going to want to put the paint on too heavy because it'll take too long to dry. Okay, so you can just mix it on up in there. Kind of get rid of all your texture once everything's painted. And then that's the first layer of your background. I love it. Fabulous. Don't be afraid to just mix all those colors, to just mix the blue and the greens together, and you know, you can have a little green on the top, a little blue on the bottom, and it's, you know, this is kind of an abstract deal, so anything goes. And don't forget, you know, you can use your paper plate to mix. You can do that. You can blue, and then just take some green and add it. That's perfectly fine. Y'all are doing great. So I'm being a little bit more careful now as we go back with the petals. I'm being a little bit more careful with my yellow, just so that I follow along with the curves that I drew. And we're going to put another coat on everything, so don't feel like you have to load the paint on there. And if you get another color on your brush, don't worry, that could actually play to your benefit and give you a little extra character to your painting. Finishing the background is next, and then we're going to go over the petals again. I'm going to get paint on the canvas just so that I have something to work with and something to mix. I'm not worried about direction just yet. I'm just going to go ahead and get the paint on the canvas so that it's wet. And you can see, either when you look at what I'm doing or looking at your own canvas, that all the streaks are starting to cover up. So you can tell that this second coat is really going to make a big difference. And you're not going to need a third coat, you can tell. The canvas is pretty much covered up in the background now, okay? So I don't have any more of the canvas showing through, no streaks, and it's wet. So I'm going to take advantage of that, and I'm going to take some black, and I'm going to mix it with some blue. And the blue is further away than the green, meaning it represents the sky, and the green represents the leaves. So we do the blue first. So what I do is I'm going to start paying attention now to the direction of my brush. I'm going to go around the petals, but you don't have to be exact, because remember, we're going to put a second coat on these petals. So now we've got our blue. I'm going to make one little swoop down here. So now I'm going to go to the green, and I'm going to think in my mind the shape of leaves. Mixing a little black. But remember not to you don't want too much black in there. There's no such thing as a wrong way to do a background. All your foreground petals, you're going to create an edge on them. You're basically going to redraw your petals that are in the foreground. So you're making basically an orange. So now I'm going to take some of this and I'm going to just create a little movement in here in the leaves. So what you're going for is a golden mustard color for some highlights. And what I'm doing is incrementally getting darker. And then once we've done the last dark accent that we want to do, then we're going to go back with just a pure white. So now I'm pretty much using true brown with a little bit of yellow in it. And I'm going to go around the base of the petals. And you want it to blend, so don't worry. First thing I'm going to do is kind of make my inner circle. So I'm going to this is just solid green. And you're just taking the very end of the brush and you're dabbing it. I'm doing the lighter yellow. I am going to do white. I'm just not, I'm going to do the white last. It can be solid red too if you like. I mean, that adds a punch to it, you'll see. So if you want to load the end of your brush with red, it'll end up touching some of this yellow. And don't be afraid to have the dots touch each other because they are going to overlap. And that's what you want. Your center should be kind of filling up with dots at this point. What we're going to go back with is white, solid white. And you can see in here, a lot of it just kind of gets messy a little bit, you know, and each thing gets over each other, and that's okay. And I'm going to use the brown by itself. I'm just putting solid brown, and I've mixed just a tiny bit of black in there. And then you're going to take the same brown with black. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, I don't want that circle to show, okay? So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to make this edge like it is on here, not as defined as a circle. And then I'm going to bring it up a little bit into the petals. I've already got red in there, and now I've mixed a little yellow and red together. And I'm just going to go in and add a few orange highlights. I'm going to use a solid white. I'm going to start off with a solid white, and it depends on how dry your paint is underneath. If it's a little bit wet and it mixes with the yellow, like here, that's a creamy color, you can see some of that's stark white and some of it's a little creamy. So it really depends on if you have any wet paint in your petals left, as to whether or not you use stark white or whether or not you mix a little yellow in there. I'm going to start off with a stark white and see. So what I'm getting there is a little bit too white for me. You can see it's a little bit too stark. Because what you're doing is you're just taking the edge off that white just a little bit so that it's a little creamy. And there's so much else you can do. I mean, you can go back and you can twiddle with this forever. You know, you can add a little orange, re-outline your leaves. There's a ton of different things that you can do with this. I always like to paint the edges of my canvas, which you don't have to do today because it'll make it wet, but you can always do this at a later time. And I paint it like this, staying away from the front of the canvas. Notice I'm painting towards the back. That's a good finished edge right there. And then you can do the other side and you can continue to rotate it, but obviously you're then going to want to lay it flat to dry. You're not going to want to put it back on the easel unless you leave an edge unpainted. All right, so everyone, this is how mine looks finished. So the edges are painted. Nobody's has to look exactly like that, but this is a finished product. So y'all keep on working, and if you need any help at all, let me know. I'm happy to come by and help. And remember, this is going to be on YouTube, the Kirby Pines YouTube channel, so you can watch it, you can try it again, create mini masterpieces. So thanks, y'all.